Mrs. Mats.
Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you, President. I've always said that Brexit was bad news for the EU and for the United Kingdom as well. There appears to be a problem with interference with the microphones. And now we can see that our relationship is ever more complex. This is something that's happening in all areas. The future of production of fruit and vegetables in the Canary Islands and fisheries too. And on fisheries, I would like to underscore our position. There cannot be a broad agreement with the United Kingdom if there is no lasting and balanced agreement with the UK on fisheries that will maintain access to British waters and European waters as well, with fishing quotas too. And the Council has sent a strong message in this regard, as has our Chief Negotiator, Michel Barnier. Managing fisheries is about much more than establishing percentages of quotas. The common fisheries policy strikes a fine balance between economic gain, social well-being and preserving fishing populations, and this balance has to be maintained. The fishermen of the UK and the EU have shared our waters for centuries, and the new agreement can't just ignore that. The common fisheries policy is already a compromise among member states, including the UK, which up until last year participated in each and every negotiation on the key aspects of the CFP. Its interests have been taken into account. And we believe that this could go on being beneficial for years. So the EU position is not extreme, as some have said. Here in this Parliament, what we're doing is trying to build a system alongside the United Kingdom. And now we can't go back on that compromise. They can't do it, and nor can we. Our responsibility goes above and beyond quotas. It's a compromise with our citizens, with people. And doing away with the current balance is going to have a spillover effect on employment from Spain to Sweden. And as members of this Parliament, it's our duty to fight for each and every one of those jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 1 minute, Mr. Benefei.
Grazie, Presidente.
Thank you, President. The bill on the internal market adopted by the House of Commons is a very serious act carried out by the British government. It violates various commitments that were taken vis-à-vis ourselves. Boris Johnson's government is making no progress on issues that are under discussion, and it's only 10 days until the 31st of October if we want to effectively and efficiently conclude this process. On the European side, we want to achieve an agreement of common interest if we want to continue to cooperation. Security, universities, technology, etc. These are all important fields. This is important for the citizens of the UK and the EU. There are more than 600,000 Italians, for example, in the UK, and these citizens, like all citizens, can't be left in a situation of uncertainty. To re-establish trust between us, it's crucial to withdraw this internal market bill and establish a common mechanism that sets out a framework on fisheries, competition and a level playing field. Following the events of last week, the risks of a no deal are clear. The EU will do everything necessary to achieve an agreement, but Boris Johnson is wrong if he thinks we'll do that at any cost. The EU is doing its part, and we want to see the British government doing its part now too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benefei. 2 minutes, Mr. Verhofstadt.
Monsieur B du groupe ID n'est plus là parce que...
Well, it would appear that my colleague from the ID is no longer here because, frankly, that position was completely ridiculous. Stop punishing the Brits. Better recognise the sovereignty of the Brits, but when it comes to fisheries, that's no longer the case. How ridiculous.
Mr. Epping is explaining us that we have not to do it in a European way, we have to do a bilateral deal. Every country with the UK. The last time that you did it, you lost New York, I presume, when you got your negotiations with the British. So if I have a suggestion to make, Michel, it's the following. That is that if we make a deal with the British, and I hope that there is a deal in the coming weeks, then we put in this final agreement, in this treaty, it's an international treaty, a disposition that automatically that treaty ceases to exist if the British don't follow all the commitments that they have taken, including in the withdrawal agreement. That's, in my opinion, absolutely necessary. Because otherwise, if there is a deal, if there is an agreement, and 27 will have ratified it, and they don't follow their commitments, it will be a huge mess. And it will be, again, the necessity for 27 decisions by the 27 member states to stop that agreement. So I think that after what happened with the Internal Market Bill, it's in the interest of the European Union to foresee such a disposition in that final agreement, the fastest as possible. And I hope that there is a deal, because the only way to secure the Good Friday Agreement, to secure the peace in Northern Ireland, and to secure our internal market. Thank you, President. In time.
Thank you, Mr. Verhofstadt. If I may, I really enjoy hearing you, and it's nice when you don't, because you don't read, and it's really wonderful the way you speak here. Now, our colleague Madison for 1 minute.
President, Mr. Barnier, it's always very funny to hear the speeches of Mr. Verhofstadt, because he's very active and funny and full of power. And he was telling for several years from 2016 that it's going to be damage for the Brexit. They're going to lose everything. We're going to make the huge pressure over the UK. But, well, after 2016, they're doing pretty fine, actually. And unfortunately, the EU is trying to mix together with a Green Deal, climate history, at the same time with some kind of economic reforms to take huge loans, and they're going more and more down. At the same time, UK and Johnson is just playing with the EU. And the EU is trying to play as a tough guy, but at the same time, he couldn't manage any normal deal, and just talking about the fisheries. So that's why I wouldn't take very seriously Mr. Verhofstadt, because he was pretty wrong to 2016 and 2017. And it's pretty clear and understandable that if there is no deal before the end of the year, the EU is losing much more than the UK is doing. And in some way, I'm pretty happy of that. So congratulations to Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madison. 1 minute. Mrs. Hautala.
Micro.
President, I read with great interest the Council conclusions on Africa, the intention to strengthen our partnership with Africa. And I would like to highlight a very particular kind of partnership that has now been initiated between the European Union, between the Commission and African cocoa-producing countries, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, because we really need to do something to eradicate child labour and deforestation from our supply chains. And now the brand new multi-stakeholder platform on cocoa is exactly what is going to do that, with a broad cooperation between partner countries, the EU, civil society, local producers, and the aim is to bring about sustainable livelihoods for poor people, poor growers in Africa, and avoid damage to our environment. And so I would, colleagues, encourage you to vote in favour of the Burkhardt report this week, which is exactly about this partnership to eradicate deforestation from supply chains.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Hautala. 1 minute, Mr. Bruczynski.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Thank you very much, President. The latest summit of the European Council shows how many problems we have to deal with right now in the European community, mostly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Of course, I agree with the conclusions concerning the measures for coordinating our reaction to the pandemic, but there are some conclusions I can't agree to, and that These are those about climate change. I think our ideas are misplaced as far as the 55% goal for 2030. That just means that the European Commission lives in alternative reality. Please remember what is the economic context. No one around the world right now is worried about the climate change because they have to fight the pandemic. They have to take care of the economy. So I don't think it will be possible to take a final decision on the 2030 target without a proper set of rules that would enable to repair our economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brzezinski. 1.5 minutes, Mr. McManus.
Thank you, Mr. President, and again thanks to the many members for reiterating their support for the Irish Protocol, which is extremely important. But there are other key issues. The all-Ireland economy is not just about goods, it's also about the free movement of people and services. The Common Travel Area, however, does not allow for free movement of EU nationals. An all-Ireland labour market and cross-border access to services are essential to the lives of thousands of EU nationals living in Ireland, north and south, as well as to the all-Ireland economy. The Parliament called for this in a resolution earlier this year, and now we should make it a reality. Because the Good Friday Agreement is based on rights. The right to access EU programmes and healthcare across the EU, and the right to be represented in this Parliament. We should find a way to give effect to these rights, rights that are being taken away by the spectre of Brexit, and the right to self-determination, which would allow the majority who oppose Brexit in the north of Ireland to remain within the EU through the vehicle of Irish unity, a central provision of the Good Friday Agreement, and which is likely to happen within the next few years. We all know the real problem is the partition of Ireland, and it would be wise for all of us to start preparing for Irish unity.
Thank you, Mr. McManus. Now, 2 minutes, Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week's European Council did not bring a Brexit breakthrough, and frankly, nobody expected it. It is the UK side that has to move now. Yet London is sulking because their third artificial deadline was not respected, and Lord Frost even dared to be disappointed. Well, in my honest view, ladies and gentlemen, the UK government has lost the right to be disappointed the moment it introduced a bill to unilaterally override an international agreement that was the fruit of a more than 3 years negotiation. A bill that puts the UK's international credibility at stake. A bill that was met with strong rebuffs from the European Parliament and the American Congress. A bill that was rejected by the Scottish and Northern Irish assemblies and yesterday by the House of Lords. A bill that undermined trust and hangs over the negotiations like a sword of Damocles. We have stated it again and again. This House will not ratify an agreement if the withdrawal agreement is breached or threatened to be breached. Dear colleagues, a no-deal Brexit after 4 years of negotiations would be a drama for our fisheries, for our hauliers, for our people and, last but not least, for politics. Now is not the time for brinkmanship. Now is not the time for blame games. Now is the time to wrap it up and finally land a deal. The EU will never walk away from these negotiations, no matter the amount of spin that comes out of number 10. For this Parliament, there is still time until the beginning of November. So keep calm and negotiate it on. Michel Barnier, Maroš Šefčovič, we trust in you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hansen. 1.5 minutes, Mr. Moreno Sanchez.
Thank you, President. Let me begin by sending out the Spanish delegation in the S&D group's condolences to the family of Samuel Paty. All our solidarity goes to the French authorities in the fight against this, because terrorism and extremism go directly against the values of the European Union: freedom, peace, diversity, etc. We need to act decisively to tackle political extremism and religious fanaticism in Europe, because they sow hatred. They endanger our common future. Moderate political forces need to stand together and be responsible. We cannot provide momentum to the extreme right, particularly given the current situation. Now moving on to Brexit, let me once again welcome the work of our chief negotiator, Michel Barnier, and express our firm support to him for what he's doing. We hope that the negotiations will be concluded as envisaged. Johnson needs to respect his previous agreements. If he doesn't, it's going to be difficult to come to an agreement. Boris Johnson's government needs to respect the withdrawal agreement and also all the standards that we have. We need to also guarantee the rights of European citizens living in the United Kingdom. Whatever the conditions of the divorce will be, Europe needs to continue to move forward as 27 into our future. We also want to activate the Conference on the Future of Europe. We need to see that taking place. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much. 2 minutes. Mrs. Schreinemarker.
Thank you, Chair. Today I'm not here for a he said, she said discussion and what door was how far open and who threw it shut. No, our citizens and businesses on both sides of the channel are looking at us to be responsible, are looking at us not to play political games, and are looking at us to reach an agreement. Because they know that a no deal is not in anyone's interest. We are in the middle of an economic crisis of which we cannot see the end. The corona crisis hit our businesses hard, not only the European, but the British as well. The British economy has hit its largest recession on record. So why make things worse with a hard Brexit? How could that serve your and our citizens and businesses? How could that be in anyone's interest? It is not. And I want to thank Michel Barnier for his tireless efforts to try and reach an agreement. It is the responsible thing to do. But we also have to remain clear that the EU will not accept a deal at any cost. We want a fair deal. But what's fair? That's the million-dollar question. Let me tell you what is not fair. A country that wants to leave the European Union but still wants to enjoy the same rights as a member state. It was the UK that decided to leave the EU. It was the UK that decided to be a third country. And now it's the UK government demanding an entire economic bloc of 27 countries to change its way of doing businesses. So, when we talk about fair, the UK government cannot expect us to sacrifice our businesses and our fishermen in order to get Brexit done. This is not their choice, and they cannot become collateral damage in this story. So what seems fair to me is that the UK can only get access to our market of 450 consumers if fair competition for our companies is guaranteed and our fishermen can continue to fish in British waters. Time is ticking, so let's get Brexit done, but let's get it done right, because a hard Brexit is not in anyone's interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, 1 minute, Mr. Van den Drische.
Collega's, 5 jaar nadat de
President, colleagues, 5 years on from the UK deciding to take back their freedom, no deal has been reached. No doubt the result of conscious sabotage to make Brexit as difficult as possible. And we want to show that there is an alternative to this. An alternative to the superstate of the EU. If Brexit is a success, other countries will no doubt seek to imitate this, and that's what the EU wants to avoid at any cost. A positive relationship with the UK is important also for thousands of jobs in Flanders. And we're paying the price for these campaigns carried out by the European elite. We never signed up to that kind of provision, and if this goes on, sooner or later, the Flemish will have their say on this too.
Thank you very much. Now, 1 minute, Mr. Bloss.
Colleagues, I'm a full-hearted European. For me, it's all in for the Union and for the climate. And I think that the youth wants that from us. They want to see passion and commitment for the planet. But what do they see if they look at the meeting of the heads of state? the opposite. They see delay tactics at the expense of our climate and of their future. The heads of state of Europe cannot come to an agreement on climate politics. Your inaction is blocking the progress. Therefore, I ask you, the German presidency, don't shy away anymore from your responsibility on the climate and the postponement of climate action. And if you can't deliver, just give climate policy back to the normal democratic legislative procedure. Because we are ready, and why aren't you?
Thank you very much. 1 minute, Mrs. Kopinska.
Panie Przewodniczący. Obecna sytuacja...
Thank you, President. The current epidemiological situation is unprecedented and it's very serious. However, we are not stopping in our efforts to fight the virus, and we must act in a way that will be responsible and based on solidarity. During the current spike in infections, we need new updated security recommendations and procedures, which must be coordinated among the member states. My question is, to what extent the Council conclusions have taken into account the position taken in September by the Health Security Committee and its recommendations concerning the new approach to testing? In the context of rampant disinformation, do you see the need for concrete plans of counteracting the disinformation on coronavirus and various false theories which make it difficult to fight the virus? Does the European Commission and the European Council consider it necessary to create a platform which would counteract? The microphone has been switched off.
Thank you very much. Next, Mr. Peters, 2 minutes.
Collega's, de dagen van de transitieperiode lopen af.
Thank you, President. The transition period is running out, and we hear talk of an intensification of negotiations, but we don't see much progress, or haven't yet. I think the time has come for our SMEs and for our fishermen to receive a clear message. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Nevertheless, I don't think we should give up. There may well be last-minute twists in a race. The last few centimetres are often the most important. There are major challenges here, and we need to reflect very carefully on the inevitable consequences that will take place as a result of a hard Brexit. Let's think about how many businesses will go bust. There are serious consequences for our fishermen, for our SMEs, etc. We need to do everything possible to persuade our British friends to come to a deal, and we need to act in line with that desire. We saw the results of the recent debate in the House of Lords. Perhaps that's a wake-up call for the British authorities. Agreements are made to be adhered to, and I think it's important to have a good agreement to ensure that it's respected. No deal is better than a bad deal, but we want a good deal. Let me conclude by wishing Michel Barnier and our negotiators every success. We believe that an agreement is the best possible opportunity for us, and I hope that the coming hours and days will lead the British authorities to think again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peters. Now for 1.5 minutes, Mr. Jonkeris.
President, next week we're going to have a very busy agenda. Corona, Brexit, the climate emergency, they're all on the agenda. And the Commission is presenting its plan for 2020 good ideas for the Green Deal, for the transition. But what about the social plans? Because the economy is taking a major hit as a result of the corona pandemic. And it's also going to take a possible hit from a possible hard Brexit. And these are costs that have to be paid. unemployment is increasing right across Europe. But we have to make sure it's not workers who pay for this. We need to make different choices. Just where the pain is the greatest, we need to provide the greatest relief. We need to help people to move from one job to another. We need to give them guarantees against child poverty. We need provisions on part-time work, because it's only together that we will be able to overcome the crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jongerius. Now for 2 minutes, Mr. Bellamy. Honourable President, everything would be better than a no deal with the UK exiting without a deal. That's why I once again state our trust in Michel Barnier, our chief negotiator. We need to make sure that European interests are represented. Some are looking at the worst case scenario. I hope that tomorrow, when we speak to our fishermen, our fisherwomen, our businessmen, we try not to have a no deal. Now, we have more and more European councils, and they begin to look like each other. On the 6th of October, we again had to look at what was happening in Turkey, despite UN conventions on Turkey and Cyprus. And we have this occupied enclave of Cyprus on European soil. Turkish boats have once again entered Greece's exclusive economic zone, who must be doubting the de-escalation that we announced. And Erdogan takes 3 steps forward and he's walking on European territory. We can't forget the fate of Armenia today, which is struck by the actions of Turkey. Azerbaijan has made Armenia in High Karabakh, has made victims. And what is Europe doing in the face of that? Europe says it finds it regrettable. Europe calls for peace. But we are not talking about sanctions, which is the only effective word that we should be uttering. Turkey is a regular crisis every week, innocent deaths every week. I think it's time to save face, it's time to act. We can't remain with our hands crossed like this. We cannot allow Turkey to spread its propaganda, especially as when Erdogan says, they are supporting terrorism, particularly what happened with Samuel Paty in France. And we heard further declarations on that subject from the Turkish president today. Thank you very much, Mr. Bellamy. Now for 1.5 minutes, Mr. Zorrinho.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. More than ever, European citizens are expecting policy responses from those who they elected to represent them. They would like more concrete messages and less declarations. I salute the progress made in coordinating the European response to the pandemic, sharing scientific data, coordination of tracing apps and testing strategies, consolidation of a common approach to quarantine, and a reduction in the restrictions to freedom and movement, as well as a guarantee to universal access to vaccine. These are decisions that will save lives, and they're useful for the community. And they're so important in terms of the relations with the UK as well. Now, the Parliament and the Commission need to make sure that we can disperse funds as quickly as possible for RRF and for the European Recovery Programme. Moreover, we need rule of law measures and our relations with Africa. This is a partnership of equals with shared priorities and a heightened involvement of civil society with respect for the institutional aspect, Mr. President, including the Joint Parliamentary Assembly, which is a integral part. Our citizens are listening to us. They want solutions, and we must be up to the task to give them to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zorrinho. For 1.5 minutes, Mr. Bullman. Thank you, President. President Michel. It was good that Africa was on the agenda of the latest summit. Good that it has been emphasized that this is a partnership based on equals and equality. What else could it be in these times? But that will only happen if we look at all problems with determination that threaten our neighbourhood continent. You and the Commission know that the pandemic is increasingly affecting the continent of Africa. African societies are not prepared. They have weaker health systems than us and many others. Are we providing the right support to Africa? I doubt that. Millions of children can't go to school in Africa due to COVID measures. There is a threat that we lose a whole generation. I say to the Commission that we need a task force and an action plan in order to ensure that this generation doesn't go lost. Hunger and famine will be a problem. People will go hungry and die if we don't make the necessary resources available. And the whole global south will they be our partners in a multilateral world? Debt relief has also been mentioned. Debt relief is the decisive factor. Don't give up on this. Don't be satisfied with what has happened. Let's continue to move forward. The Commission, it has been disappointing in its action plan, in its work plan. I ask for more from the Commission. Thank you very much, Mr. Bullman. Now, to conclude this discussion, we have Mr. Šefčovič.